Hi, guys. Welcome back to the podcast in a different area of my house because this is a different kind of podcast. If all has gone as planned, this is a collaboration between my podcast channel and my personal YouTube channel. Welcome back to the miniature mic monologue. I have titled this sensualizer, visualizer episode of the podcast / YouTube video, The Luxury of Life, because I consume a lot of content. I also am extremely rooted in my faith. Like, those are my two hobbies: checking myself and watching other people live their lives, because I think YouTube and TikTok in some aspects and Instagram and all that stuff is so cool because it lets us live the lives of someone that we would have never met had we not had social media. So I really enjoy it for that reason, among many others. But I have often felt like, because of my context in the Western society, that we get a lot of the wrong ideas about things. Sometimes we get them right, but other times we get them wrong. I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with the concepts of luxury that relate more to opulence and extreme amounts of wealth and displaying that. I think that would be okay if it wasn't centered around greed and finding a way to generate acceptance that does not come from yourself. I think that's what most of it is. And also just growing up and realizing that you could spend $10,000 on something that you could buy for $20 or $600 or $200 that is the same quality, because we're so enthralled with the idea of a name and a brand. And this is very apparent for me because I love fashion, but it really got me thinking about life and what really is a luxury in life. And I feel like because we were afforded the ultimate luxury, which is not salvation, because that is something that is and is to come, but that is life with Christ, life with the Holy Spirit. I wanted to provide a little bit of a different take on it and explain to you my vantage point of the true luxury of life that really has very little to do with status, wealth, and or belongings. Okay, now I want you to visualize something with me. It is post 2024. We are fresh into 2025, and I am at home with my mom going to church, and I am a little bit depressy because my college career did not end the way that I had hoped that it would, and on top of that, it had ended. So double little tiny depressy. But I did not. And when I say did not, I have never felt an urge so strong to not get up and go to church like I did that day since I was like, I don't even think I felt it when I was little, because I knew that if I got up and went to church, my grandfather would buy me McGriddle cakes. But I did not want to go to church this Sunday, okay? And doesn't matter. I get up and I go to church anyways. I actually was vlogging the day that I went to church and this happened. But I was processing everything by myself off camera. The pastors are a couple at this church, a husband and wife. And the wife was kind of leading this transition intercessory prayer. This church believes in letting the Spirit guide the service. And so in this transition period, she was just kind of listening to see if the Holy Spirit had anything to give to her. And she locked eyes with me. And I was like, oh, no. And long story short, she basically said that the Lord was speaking to me, saying, I am going to stop letting man get in the way of what I promised you. And she went on to talk, kind of just explaining it, providing the context that came with it. And I started crying, not because I was happy to hear that word. It was actually just the opposite. I was quite upset because it had just confirmed what I knew in my spirit was going on, which was that there was a hindrance in the deliverance of the promise that God had for me, which at that time, the main focus I was believing for and the promise was the national championship. And so she's telling me this after I've already lost, or the Lord is speaking through her to tell me this after I've lost my opportunity to be a collegiate national champion. So all I thought to myself was, this is so unfair, because I knew then, like I know now, like I'll know till the day that I die, that I was doing what was righteous in the sight of the Lord. And I had done it to the best of my ability, 100%, with the help of the Holy Spirit throughout my college career. And I was just like, why did it have to come down to this? Why am I still not seeing what I've been promised? And so, it was really frustrating. And I just kind of processed that for a while. And like many other times I was just upset with the Lord at this revelation that most people probably would have performatively jumped and shouted and screamed at. I was angrily crying and displeased and upset because I knew that what he had for me, for whatever reason, had been withheld from me for this season. My college career can largely be traced back to a moment of inspiration, because I have always been the type of person, like when I think back on who I was when I was at my youngest and, so naive and just living life to be living life because I knew nothing else. I have always been the girl who took inspiration from the people and the things and the places that were quote unquote better than mine, or at a different level, at a more advanced level. And all throughout my adolescent, teenage, and now in my young adult life, it has taken me a very long time to understand the envious viewpoint, the place of contempt that so many people sit in and hold others in when they have something quote unquote over them or something better than them. And it's so funny that it's taken me this long to kind of understand it, and I still completely don't. And some of that is in ignorance that I choose because I refuse to believe that just because it's an option that I have to embrace it. Nonetheless, I have had so much experience with that feeling, with jealousy. I don't know how to explain that. Not as the person who is feeling the jealousy or the envy, not to say that I never have, because I've seen it. I've just chosen to push it away. But on the recipient side, like being able to feel that kind of jealousy and envy and hatred for something that you have, or something that someone thinks you have that they don't. And I feel like I, especially lately, have been like a broken record talking about how my family has affirmed me so much since I was a child. So I don't know anything but to be secure in the things that come with who I am. And it's definitely been a journey to get secure in all of those things, because we each have experiences in this world that make us question who we are at times. And we will go on to have those experiences because that's life as we know it, right? But I've always viewed it and it being insecurity as an indication of my impermanence rather than a nagging reminder of my imperfections. And this again goes back to my early exposure in the church, knowing that one, this is not my home, and two, this body will not be forever, and three, this is the only one I got, and my earliest memories of it are to love it. So why would I spend time that I really don't have hating it when it actually doesn't really matter? Humor me as we entertain this next idea. Have you ever watched an aesthetic YouTube video or an Instagram reel or an extremely nostalgic feeling movie, and it's inspired you to embrace that kind of life that you see being lived? If not, I'm just going to tell you right here, we can't be friends, because I feel like that was and sometimes is the story of my life, especially when I was really young growing up, trying to figure out a way that I wanted to live once I got to my grown-up age, which as I've gotten older, I've realized, well, you just keep growing up, so there really is no grown-up age that we reach, because the last age we reach is the one we die at, and we don't know when that is. I'm getting distracted. My point is, every time I have imagined that kind of inspired life from whatever I saw at the movie theater or at home on my TV screen or my laptop or my phone, it's like I entered into this big room full of windows. I mean, floor, like the room is just windows. It's glass, 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 glass. Okay, so just envision that with me. That's what I'm thinking, imagining as a child, is this big grandeur room with floor to ceiling windows that represent the possibility of the life that I want to live. The beauty, the passion, the love, the luxury that I desire to emulate from this source and put it into my own life. If you've ever felt that way before, and since we're assuming that you are and you're sitting in this room with me, I want to be of service to you and I, because it's also me looking back on this and also me right now, as much as possible in this area, because I used to fear deeply that I would never become the person I always wanted to be. And when I would have these moments of huge inspiration, it was almost like my life restarted again. And this was a little bit more relevant once I was a little less serious in my faith, or I'll just say young, because almost my amount of seriousness relates to my level of self-awareness and consciousness of the world around me and how much responsibility I take in it. So it's una mezcla, okay? But I have always been the kid that's like, it's just going to happen anyways. It's just going to happen. So I used to naively assume that one day the life that I dreamed of, that opened up as soon as I saw something new and put me back in that room, would fall into my hands just as it played out into my head. And then when I opened up my relationship with Christ, I soon realized that just how I see it in my head and how I envision myself in that room with all of the power and potential to take it on and embrace what's outside those windows, I realized that it can be like that in my real life, but I can't accomplish that by impersonating a scripted or curated version of my life. And I did that for a long time. I tried to put rules in my head. I tried to, set up structures and be really legalistic, and that doesn't work, first of all, with Christ, because we don't live under the law anymore. We live with grace. So it was like in direct contradiction with this newfound freedom that God was trying to give me early on in my faith journey. But I thought it was leading me to that thing. And I really had to break down and sit back and be humble and let God direct me to the freedom that he has ordained for all of us to have and walk in grace on this side of heaven. So what I would come to find out is that structure that I tried to put in my life by emulating the scripted and curated moments that inspired me so much was really a masked version of the fear and doubt and insecurity that I held about becoming who I wanted to be and all the things that might contingently stop me from doing that. And so I'm in that room, right? Again, with floor to ceiling windows, and it's open and it's amazing and the light is beaming through. I had to start working through that fear because the room that was once so full of light and life, it now appeared to be dark, or it was just covered up, almost to no effect. Because when I tell you these windows are big, like they're big, they surround me on every corner. They are underneath my feet. It's above my head. And the light can't be stopped. It can't be shadowed out. It can appear like it is at times. When I decided that I wanted those literally pointless blinds that were covering the light in my room of inspiration and hope for life, when I decided I wanted them gone, because I could still see the light. And what are you doing here anyways? Because, well, you're honestly just getting on my nerves right now. I essentially envisioning myself, you and me in this room, what I did spiritually and in my real mental life, which manifests itself in many different ways in the physical world, which I'm sure I'll talk about in another episode. But I approached them with all of my pent up and Holy Spirit given courage in the world. And it's almost like they performed what some would call sleight of hand maneuver, and they disappeared. They ceased to exist after I took my first step in that direction. And what I'm trying to get across to you is that the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, all of that, the blinds, they only exist as long as you allow them to. And they only take up space if you believe that they do. And this is pretty idealistic in communication, because through lived experience, we have all become aware that fear can have power over you, and doubt and insecurity and all of these things coming from many different sources, whether trauma or, anything in between, just genuine fear of embarrassment, a lack of self-acceptance. These things can have power over you, but the key word is can. They don't have to. And as soon as you step towards the idea of these things being removed from your life, they're gone in that instant. You might have to work through all the muddled up and mixed up constructs and strongholds in your mind and your spirit and your emotions that led you to believe that they ever had power. But trust me when I say, because of the Holy Spirit, when you take that first step in the direction, they're gone. He's given you freedom. He's given you dominion over the earth. He's given you everything you need to see the dreams that he's put on the inside of you, that you've held closely and tightly to you since you were a little girl. Realize you just have to take a step towards the things, that are attempting to block out the light that shines into your room of inspiration, for you to realize that it never had any power anyways. So this luxury of life that we have been talking about this entire video, I used to assume that life's ultimate luxury was conclusivity. The ability to live in the present, hope for, and look back on a reality in which all of my problems were solved. A past, present, and future where my every need is met before I'm even aware that I need it, leaving me 100% free to do, well, yeah. So the luxury of life is not the lived apathy we blindly assume comes with making it. The true luxury of life is pain and failure. It's anger and dissatisfaction, solace and friendship, hatred and love. The luxury of life in real life is the zest and zeal we acquire while trying to live. Because learning hurts oftentimes. It is not always romanticizable and growth oriented. It's oftentimes triggering and even traumatic. The luxury hidden in between those moments and these words is the power and freedom we maintain to choose how our life will be lived. That's the luxury of life. The most valuable learned luxury there is life. Okay, that's it. Love you. Bye.